I walked into that barbershop on a Tuesday afternoon thinking it was just another errand. 30 minutes later, I was laughing at Jordan's jokes like I had known him for years. By midnight, I was lying in his bed staring at the ceiling wondering how my carefully planned life had just exploded. My name is Ethan. I am 27 years old and I work as an accountant in downtown Chicago. On paper, my life looked perfect. I had a good job, a nice apartment in Lincoln Park, and I was engaged to Emily, my high school sweetheart from back home in rural Illinois. Our wedding was planned for next spring. My parents could not stop talking about it. They kept saying how proud they were that I had found a good Christian girl who would help me build a stable family. The truth was I felt trapped. Every time I looked at Emily, I felt affection but never the spark I knew I should feel. I told myself it was normal, that adult love was about partnership, not fireworks. I pushed the doubts down deep and focused on work deadlines and weekend visits to my parents' farm, where my dad would clap me on the back and talk about grandkids. That Tuesday, I needed a haircut. My usual place was booked, so a coworker recommended a shop called Urban Edge on the north side. I figured it would be quick. I walked in, and the place smelled of sandalwood and fresh coffee. Modern chairs, sleek mirrors, and a playlist of indie rock playing low. Jordan was the owner and my barber. He was 32 tall with broad shoulders, dark hair neatly faded on the sides, and warm brown eyes that seemed to see more than they should. He shook my hand firmly and smiled. "Ethan, right? Have a seat, man. What are we doing today?" As he worked the clippers, we started talking. At first, it was surface stuff. Sports, the Bears' chances this season, the crazy Chicago weather. Then he asked what I did for a living, and I told him about accounting. He laughed and said numbers would kill him. He shared that he opened the shop after leaving a corporate job because he wanted to build something real where people could actually talk. Something about the way he listened made me open up more than I intended. I mentioned my engagement almost as a shield. Jordan nodded but did not push. Instead, he told me about his own life. How he grew up in a small town in Michigan where being gay meant hiding until he could not anymore. How his father stopped speaking to him for 2 years after he came out. The story hit me harder than I expected. I felt a strange pull in my chest, like someone had finally named the emptiness I carried. By the time he finished the haircut, the shop was empty. It was past 7. Jordan wiped down his station and asked if I was hungry. "There is a great Thai place around the corner. My treat since you sat through my life story." I should have said no. I had dinner plans with Emily on the phone later. Instead, I heard myself say yes. We talked through dinner. He asked questions that made me think. What did I really want out of life? Was I happy? No one had ever asked me that directly. I found myself admitting things I had never said out loud. How the engagement felt like a performance. How my parents' expectations weighed on me like a physical thing. Jordan listened without judgment. His eyes never left mine. After dinner, he suggested we grab a drink at his place nearby. I have a decent whiskey collection and no loud bar scene. Again, I should have refused. Instead, I followed him to his apartment a few blocks away. It was neat, modern, with big windows overlooking the city lights. We sat on the couch and the conversation went deeper. He told me about the pain of losing friends who could not accept him. I told him about the nights I lay awake wondering if something was wrong with me. Hours passed. The whiskey was gone. It was after 11. Jordan looked at me and said softly, "You can crash here if you want. The couch pulls out, but honestly the bed is bigger and I do not mind sharing. No pressure. Just two guys who need sleep." I hesitated only a second. The idea of going home to my empty apartment and calling Emily felt unbearable. I nodded. We both changed into spare clothes he gave me. Nothing happened. We simply lay there in the dark talking until our voices grew quiet. His presence next to me felt safe and terrifying at the same time. As I drifted off, I realized for the first time in years I felt seen. When I woke up the next morning, sunlight streamed through the blinds. Jordan was still asleep beside me, breathing steady. My heart pounded. I was in a man's bed. Not just any man, but one who had cracked open the walls I built for years. I slipped out of bed as quietly as I could and gathered my things. My mind raced. What had I done? Nothing physical had happened, but the emotional intimacy felt more dangerous than anything else could have. I left a short note on the kitchen counter thanking him for the night and the conversation. Then I hurried out into the cold Chicago morning. The walk to the train felt endless. Every step brought a new wave of guilt. Emily texted asking how my night was. I replied with a lie saying I stayed late at work. At the office I could not focus. Numbers blurred on the screen. All I could think about was Jordan's voice, the way he looked at me like I mattered beyond the role I played for everyone else. By lunch I was spiraling. I called my best friend Mike from college who still lived in the suburbs. We met at a quiet sandwich shop. I did not tell him everything, just that I met someone interesting at the barbershop and felt confused. Mike laughed it off at first. "Dude, you are getting cold feet before the wedding. Totally normal." When I pressed that it was more than that, he grew quiet. "Ethan, you know your parents. They would lose their minds. And Emily, she loves you, man. Do not throw away what you have for some random guy." His words stung because they echoed my own fears. That afternoon I forced myself to call Emily. We talked about wedding flowers and her latest shift at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. Her voice was warm and familiar, but it felt distant now. I told her I loved her, which was true in a way, but the lie of omission burned in my throat. That evening I went back to the barbershop. I told myself it was just to thank Jordan properly. The shop was closing when I arrived. He looked surprised but pleased to see me. "I thought you might disappear after last night." We talked outside on the sidewalk. He did not push for anything romantic. Instead he asked how I was feeling. I admitted the panic. He nodded, understanding. "I have been there. The first time you let yourself feel it is like the ground shifts." We ended up walking along the lakefront. The wind off Lake Michigan was sharp, but the conversation flowed easily again. Jordan shared more about his journey. The therapy, the friends who became family, the decision to open his shop as a safe space. I told him about my childhood on the farm, Sundays at church, my father's lectures about traditional values. For the first time I said out loud that I had known since I was 15 but buried it. He stopped walking and looked at me. "Ethan, you do not have to figure everything out tonight, but you deserve to live honestly, whatever that means." His hand brushed mine briefly. The touch sent electricity through me. I did not pull away. We did not go back to his place that night. I went home alone, but the seed was planted. Over the next week I found excuses to see him. A quick coffee. Another haircut, even though I did not need one. Each meeting chipped away at the walls. I started questioning everything. My job felt meaningless. The wedding plans felt like a cage. Then my mother called. She and my father were coming to Chicago for a surprise visit in 2 weeks. They wanted to meet with the wedding planner and spend time with Emily and me. "We are so excited to see our boy settling down," she said. The pressure settled on my chest like concrete. I met Jordan that Friday night after work. We sat in his apartment again, talking for hours. This time when he leaned in and kissed me gently, I did not stop him. It was soft and full of the emotion we had been circling for days. No rush, just truth. When we pulled apart, he whispered, "We do not have to do anything more. This is enough for now." We fell asleep together again, fully clothed, his arm around me. For the first time in my life, I felt at peace and completely terrified of what came next. The next morning brought the first real test. My phone buzzed with messages from Emily. She wanted to finalize the guest list. I stared at the screen while Jordan made coffee in the kitchen. The domestic scene felt right and wrong at the same time. I told him about my parents' visit. He listened quietly, then said, "You have to decide what you want, Ethan. I will not push you, but I also will not hide." I left his apartment with a heavy heart. At work I avoided calls from Emily. That evening I met her for dinner. She looked beautiful as always, but I kept seeing Jordan's face in my mind. During the meal she talked about our future house, kids, the life we would build. I nodded along, but inside I was breaking. When she asked if everything was okay, I lied again and said I was just stressed from work. The following days were torture. I saw Jordan in secret. Each meeting brought us closer. We talked about everything. My fears of losing my family, his past heartbreaks, the societal judgment we both knew would come. One night he told me about a cousin who was gay and took his own life because the family shame was too much. The story left me shaking. I realized the stakes were real. My parents arrived on a Friday. They stayed at a hotel near my apartment. The first dinner with them and Emily was excruciating. My father kept praising me for choosing a good woman. My mother talked about how God had blessed our union. Emily squeezed my hand under the table beaming. I felt like a fraud. Saturday morning my father wanted to see my office. On the way he asked if I was ready to be a husband and provider. I mumbled yes, but the words tasted like ash. That afternoon, while my parents rested, I slipped away to see Jordan. We met at a quiet park. I broke down telling him how trapped I felt. He held me while I cried. "You are not alone anymore," he said. Sunday brought the explosion. My mother found a text from Jordan on my phone while I was in the shower. It was innocent, but the name and the heart emoji gave it away. She confronted me in the living room with my father and Emily present. "Who is this Jordan? And why is he sending you messages like that?" The room went silent. Emily looked confused, then hurt. My father demanded answers. I could not lie anymore. In a shaking voice, I told them the truth. That I had feelings for a man. That the engagement felt wrong. That I was gay. My father turned red. "This is not how we raised you. This is a phase or the devil tempting you." My mother cried, saying I was breaking the family. Emily ran out in tears. I stood there alone in the wreckage of the life I had built on lies. The days after the confrontation blurred into pain. Emily called once to say she needed space and that she felt betrayed. She had suspected something was off but never imagined this. Her words cut deep because I knew I had hurt an innocent person who loved me. My parents returned to the farm without saying goodbye. My father left a voicemail saying he needed time to pray on whether he could still call me son. Work suffered. I missed deadlines and my boss noticed. Colleagues whispered. One coworker who had recommended the barbershop gave me a knowing look but said nothing. I felt exposed, like the whole city knew my secret. Jordan was my anchor. He came over every evening after closing the shop. We talked through the tears and anger. He shared his own coming-out horror stories to show me I could survive. One night he said, "The people who truly love you will find their way back. The ones who cannot were never really seeing you anyway." I tried to reach out to Emily. We met at a coffee shop. She was calm but devastated. "I thought we had a future, Ethan. Was any of it real?" I told her the affection was real, but the romantic love was not what it should have been. She asked if Jordan was the reason. I nodded. She cried but said she wanted me to be happy even if it was not with her. We ended the engagement that day. The wedding deposits were lost, but that seemed minor compared to the emotional cost. My sister called from home. She was the only one who sounded supportive. "I always wondered," she said quietly. "Dad is being stubborn but Mom is softening. Give them time." Her words gave me a sliver of hope. The pressure at work increased when a conservative client heard rumors and requested a different accountant. My boss called me in for a talk. He was understanding but warned that the company had a family image to maintain. I felt the societal judgment closing in. Through it all, Jordan stood by me. We grew closer emotionally. We shared quiet nights talking about the future. He encouraged me to see a therapist, which I started doing. The sessions helped me unpack years of shame and fear. I began to understand that my choices had consequences, but staying in the lie would have destroyed me slowly. One weekend, Jordan took me to meet some of his chosen family. A group of gay men and allies who had become brothers to him. They welcomed me warmly. For the first time, I felt part of a community that did not require me to pretend. The experience was healing, but it also highlighted how much I had lost from my old life. The real test came when my father had a health scare. My mother called in tears saying he was in the hospital after chest pains. Despite everything, I drove down to Illinois that night. Jordan offered to come, but I said I needed to face this alone. At the hospital, my father looked frail in the bed. My mother hugged me tightly. We sat in awkward silence until he spoke. "I almost died without making peace with my son." His voice cracked. He admitted the shock had forced him to examine his own beliefs. He did not fully understand, but he said he loved me and wanted to try. My mother nodded through tears, saying the same. It was not full acceptance, but it was a start. We talked for hours. I told them about Jordan without details that would shock them further. My father listened. He did not approve, but he did not disown me either. I raised you to be a good man, he said. If this is who you are, then I have to learn to live with it. The visit brought some healing but also new pain. Old friends from church reached out with messages that mixed concern with judgment. Some quoted Bible verses. Others simply stopped replying. The betrayal from people I grew up with hurt deeply. Back in Chicago, I threw myself into work and my relationship with Jordan. We faced small confrontations. A neighbor saw us holding hands and made a rude comment. At a restaurant, a server gave us a strange look. Each incident tested us but also strengthened our bond. Jordan had his own struggles. His shop faced a minor boycott from a local group after someone posted about him being openly gay. Business dipped for a week. We talked late into the night about the cost of living openly. He admitted sometimes he wondered if staying hidden would have been easier. But then he looked at me and said, "Then I would not have met you." I started volunteering at an LGBTQ center, helping young people struggling with coming out. The work gave me purpose and showed me I was not alone in the fight against prejudice. The climax came at my company's holiday party. I brought Jordan as my date. Some colleagues were supportive. Others were cold. My boss pulled me aside and said the company was evolving, but I needed to keep things professional. I stood my ground. For the first time, I chose myself without apology. Months passed and life settled into a new normal. My relationship with Jordan deepened into something steady and real. We moved in together in a bigger apartment near the lake. My parents visited once. The dinner was tense but civil. My father even shook Jordan's hand, though he avoided eye contact much of the night. Small steps. Emily found someone new and sent me a kind message wishing me well. It brought closure. My sister became a regular visitor and ally. The family wounds were healing slowly. At work, I changed departments to one with a more inclusive culture. The volunteer work at the center became a passion project. I spoke at a small event about my journey. The experience was freeing. Jordan proposed on a quiet evening walk along the lake. No big spectacle, just us two and the city lights. I said yes without hesitation. The ring felt right in a way the one with Emily never had. Looking back, the barbershop trip was the catalyst that forced me to stop living for everyone else. The pain was immense. Lost relationships, damaged family ties, and professional setbacks. But the awakening was worth it. I finally knew who I was and who I loved. The price was high, but living authentically brought a peace I never knew existed. Jordan and I built a life based on truth, not performance. Was following my heart the right choice, even though it cost me pieces of my old world, or would staying in the lie and hurting everyone, including myself, have been the greater moral failure?